When you think of VTwin naked bikes, what kind of sounds do you normally think of? If you're like me, you probably think of the Super Duke, which sounds like this. Or maybe one of the older Ducati Monsters that sounds like this. Hell, you might even think of something like my Grezzo, which sounds like this. Not one VTwin naked bike sounds quite like this thing. This is the legendary Yamaha MT01. I am so excited to take this thing for a rip. Okay, there is so much to talk about here, but for those of you who don't know what this motorcycle is, I don't blame you, because there were not that many of these things made and they were not available in the United States. This is the ultimate master of torque motorcycle, MT01, not MT10. Yes, that motorcycle exists, but this thing came before it. This is a motorcycle that wasn't available in the United States. It was available in Canada and abroad, but for some reason, Yamaha in their infinite wisdom thought that a VTwin air-cooled 1700cc naked bike, well, that just wouldn't work in the United States. Yamaha, what the f***?
Now, pulling away on this giant barge of a naked bike, anybody who knows Austin and knows the fun roads out here should be able to recognize where I am. This is Cow Creek, an undivided little farm road. It's basically just a driveway for the few ranchers who live out here. It is bumpy, it's twisty, it's tight, there's descending radiuses. This is a hard road to ride. And what am I out here on? I'm out here on a huge VTwin naked bike. Oh boy, come on. Yep, there we go. I'm having to think a lot harder, so this vlog is gonna sound a little bit different. Just because of... this bike is work to ride, man. It's not easy. And I think that might be one of the things that sort of undid this motorcycle back in the day. It's not just an easy-going cruiser. Now, first and foremost, let's talk about the power delivery on this guy. So, you might be hearing that, and if you're, just watching this video in the background, you're probably like, oh, Spike's just on a cruiser. And the power delivery is exactly the same as a cruiser. You're gonna hear me say that again and again throughout this video. This is a cruiser motor. They didn't modify this motor in terms of like how much, where the torque is, how much it revs out. It's just like they just pulled it out of the Warrior and plopped it in this guy. And that's so cool. This is the only naked bike I've ridden in 6 years and like over 100 motorcycles that is set up like this. And because this thing is just a beastly VTwin, it delivers so much mid-range torque. You're coming to this motor not for the horsepower, but for just the rush of torque when you whack the throttle open. And you know, if you just wanna cruise and just go for it, this motor's really chill too. Like right now, it's just like, yeah, I'm totally happy puttering down a twisty road at 45 mile an hour. And then you open it up and it's like, let's go, baby. But we do have to talk about the handling. This is a mixed bag if ever I've felt one. I did take a look at the front tire. It does look like it's a little bit scalloped. Like there may be some flat spots in it, which does affect the handling. Not major stuff, but it looks like an old tire. You know, it's just a worn tire. And worn tires don't handle great. But I don't think that is the sole source of this bike's handling woes. It is a portly motorcycle. It is north of 600 pounds. And the engine is a beast in this thing. I bet you this engine weighs 300 pounds. It's very heavy, and that definitely affects the weight distribution on this motorcycle. The weight distribution is not right. It's not right by normal standards. But all of that being said, I'm having so much fun riding this. It's so much fun riding a motorcycle that Yamaha was just like, let's see if it works. One thing I do want to talk about though are the brakes on this thing. It's weird. It's weird because a lot of the braking is happening from the engine. You have so much engine braking that I feel really comfortable not carrying the brake around a corner. But that being said, the brakes are still pretty damn good. Let me show you. Is that the best braking performance I've ever felt? No. But it still works really darn well considering the mass that they're trying to stop. And when you combine the brakes, the size, the motor, the way the transmission feels, the way the engine vibrates the whole motorcycle, this is the most bizarrely unique and special riding experience I've ever had on a twisty road. It's really hard for me to talk about this objectively, just because it's so odd. It's so wrong and yet so right. I'm having a ton of fun, but this is definitely not the riding experience for everybody on a twisty road. It's hard. It's hard work. And if you just want an easy Sunday cruise, this ain't for you, my friend. But with that being said, let's pull this thing over and have a more detailed conversation about the specs on this machine, because that's where we're going to see some really wonky numbers and just go over some of my pros and cons, because why not? Let's have some fun.
Before we talk about the specs, I need to take a second to shout out the sponsor for today's video, Insta360. I've always got one of their X3 cameras on my handlebars because it's the best way to film everything all around you. Whether you're looking to add some flair to your YouTube videos or you want to share some rides with your friends, the X3 is there for you. It's as simple as pushing one button, or if you need to, you can dive into those menus and get this camera set up exactly the way that you need to for your use case. For me, the biggest win is how easy it is to edit the footage in Premiere Pro. I can get great looking footage in seconds, but you don't have to use fancy editing software if you don't want. It can all be done straight from the app, and you don't need to be a Hollywood editor to get the job done. Click that link down in the description below and get a free selfie stick with your order, or check out their brand new Ace Pro action camera. A huge shout out to Insta360 for sponsoring the channel. Now let's hear some crazy specs. All right, I promised you some wacky numbers. You ready for them? This is a 1670cc, 101 cubes, I think. 1700-ish cc air-cooled V-twin. This motor comes out of the Yamaha Warrior, and Yamaha did a whole bunch of cocaine and was like, yeah, let's just put it in a naked bike, see what happens. The result is awesome. This motor is making 110 foot-pounds of torque while making only about 90 horsepower. I know, only 90 horsepower, but let's be real, this thing's 585 pounds, so it does help slow it down a little bit. This is a very heavy motorcycle. The vast majority of the weight is in this lump of an engine right here. We do also have a seat height of 32.5 inches on this thing. However, I'm gonna tell you right now, if you're on the shorter side, don't bother. Even for me, it can be a reach, and I gotta say, this is a massive motorcycle to sit on. This is a big motorcycle and it feels really comfortable for me. If you're on the smaller side, this is going to feel enormous. Now, let's talk some pros and cons. First pro and first con is the motor. So you're gonna hear me mention this a little bit later. I do not like Japanese V-twins. However, in this configuration, I can overlook a lot of the drawbacks of just sort of a plain Jane Japanese V-twin. It's so cool that it's in this configuration. It's just so wild and so weird, and I love it so much. Another pro, the size. A real con though, the handling on this thing, it's not great. I'm not gonna lie, it's a hard motorcycle to ride. Once it gets on the line, the suspension works really well because this is R1 derived suspension, but it's hard to get it on that line because of the way the weight's distributed. This thing is, it's so much fun to ride because it's hard to ride. It's one of those things where you would like Tremors. Tremors is a bad movie. It's arguably a bad movie, and they only get worse as they go. However, there's still a ton of fun. That's exactly where I put this thing. This is the Tremors of motorcycles, not only because it's kind of hard to ride, but also because when you roll down the road, this giant V-twin makes the ground shake. Honestly, I could just go on and on and on about this motorcycle. It's comfortable, it's big, it's loud, it's boisterous, it looks so cool. I think it looks so cool. It's this weird blend of retro and future. But if I keep talking, the video is going to be long, and it's already long enough already. So let's just go get it on the highway, see how it feels. Spoiler alert, it's gonna feel great.
What better way to start out a highway discussion of the MT01 than by sitting at a red light so that we can demonstrate its ability to just peel away from a stop. This thing is, it's deceptively fast. See what I mean? You're up to speed like that. It's not leader bike speed, it's cruiser speed. Now, I talked about that before, but this thing through and through has the blood and bones of a cruiser with the trappings of a naked bike. And that makes this thing awesome on the highway. It's so easy to ride, and it's so, like, it tracks like a freaking freight train. The seat is so good. It's so wide and comfy and squishy in all the right ways. There's so much room on this bike. And again, just the torque. The torque is amazing because it's a 1700cc cruiser motor. Now, admittedly, we're not on that fast of a highway, so we're not really seeing what the top end of the speed looks like. This is basically just your, country back road here. But it will suffice. And the thing that I want to talk about here is the stance. The stance is very weird. I'm not talking about me and the position I'm in. Again, that's just total naked bike stuff. On this thing, I feel about as far away from the ground as I do on my freaking KLR 650. And that's definitely down to the fact that the engine is so tall. And that makes the highway ride awesome because my entire helmet is in clean air. And usually I hate these dashboard or these little bikini fairings, but this one's doing a great job. Why did Yamaha make this? It's so cool. Now, one thing that you get a lot from these big cruiser motors is a lot of vibration, and I'm getting a ton of it here, but it's not like Harley vibration where it feels like my eyeballs are shaking in my head. It's kind of a pleasant vibration. It doesn't feel like my fingers are gonna go to sleep or my feet are gonna go to sleep, because you just get that constant sensory overload of high vibration that you get on some, big cruiser motors. Now, I have said a lot of good stuff. Let me mention something I don't like. And it's kind of weird. I don't love the motor. Something about Japanese VTwins. It sounds to me like an approximation of a Harley sound. It's really hard for me to talk about, but there's just a feel, because I've ridden a bunch of Harleys and I've ridden a bunch of big European V-twins, and I've ridden a bunch of Japanese ones, and Japan just doesn't make a great V-twin. Don't get me wrong, this motor is great and it produces awesome power, and I'm having a lot of fun on it, but it's just a big V-twin. There's nothing crazy special about this motor as I'm riding it down the road, other than the fact that it is in a extremely bizarre package. But because it is in this bizarre package, a generic motor can be overcome by the rest of the riding experience, which makes it so much more fun. Like, this is such an aberration in the world of motorcycling that, despite the fact that I'm not a big, huge fan of this motor in general, I'm still really enjoying the ride. I'm really enjoying the ride. And you could easily throw big bags on this thing, put a throttle lock on here, and go do big miles. It's a really comfortable bike that's sprung really well for just long stretches of highway, and it just tracks so straight. It's so easy to ride. If you're going in a straight line, it's awesome. Absolutely love it. But let's pull this giant beast over and let's answer some Discord questions about the MT01.
All right, now this is always the most fun part for me of any of these reviews, although I'm not gonna lie, Discord boys, riding this is the most fun part of this review for me. Sorry. I love you guys, but I think I love this thing more. Anyway, this is always the most fun because we ask the Discord boys what they want to know about this motorcycle. If you would like to participate in these reviews, all you got to do, click the link down in the description below. Check out the Patreon. That is the best way for you to support the channel. It's the easiest way for you to get access to behind the scenes content. You get early access to videos, you get discounts on merch, you get all sorts of cool stuff that you don't get to see on YouTube. If you want to check any of that stuff out, information down in the description below. Let's dive on in with our first question from Dr. Taco. How many pizzas can it carry? Well, we do have actually a pretty big rack on here. I would reckon it could probably carry 2 medium Dominoes really comfortably, and then maybe like a small on top of it. Corgi Dasco, again, freaking Dasco apocalypse, still ongoing. Why would anyone want an MT with only 100 cc's? See, that's why this name is so stupid. Why is this an MT01? Why isn't it an MT17 or something like that? Or why didn't they just call it like an Avenger or something really cool like the Warrior, you know? Dasco ATX, is it more of a muscle bike or a hyper naked? 100% muscle bike. This is not a hyper naked whatsoever. It will get absolutely trounced by anything. Even my 919 would obliterate this in a straight line. Caballo Bandito asking, is this the FTR before the FTR? Close. The FTR is definitely a lot more flat track inspired, but it has that same kind of big brawl energy. This is much closer to something like my Grezzo, believe it or not. The FTR it's a lot more hooligan than this. Dasco Beatus man asking, what would you pay for a used one? That's the real question, isn't it? Because this bike right here, linked down in the description if you actually want to check this bike out for yourself, is 8,000 bucks, I believe he's asking. However, for me to get my hands on one, I'd have to spend like 4,000 Canadian and then whatever fees to import it, plus the process of going up to import it. So honestly, when you consider all the work that you'd have to do to get this thing into the States, I'd say 8 grand, especially for as immaculately kept as this motorcycle is. That's really not that much to ask, I don't think. I think 8 grand is pretty close to fair, maybe 7 grand? Tedasco asking, can a 5'2" King tour on this? No, you're way too short for this motorcycle, my friend, I'm sorry. Dosgo, by how much does it affect the rotation of the Earth when you ride the MT01? And is the reason it wasn't sold in the US because of fear of destabilizing the California fault line? I could believe it. With how much torque this thing puts out? Sure. Nah, I mean, I honestly think the reason it wasn't sold here was just bad timing. This was an 06 motorcycle. The financial crash hit right in 08. It's what killed the B King. It's what changed the motorcycling marketplace and almost killed power sports. So I think this was just a case of horrendous timing. I genuinely don't understand why it wasn't a United States bike. I'm talking about behind the scenes stuff. Dasco ATX asking, from your short video you posted, sounds like it's actually living up to your expectations rather than the meh which you were afraid of. 100% this is living up to all of my expectations. It's really gonna be hard for me to give the keys back to the owner. This is a bike that is going to live rent-free in my brain for the rest of my life. It's so cool, and I 100% will own one of these one day. I'm not sure if I'll own this one or if I'm gonna have to import one of these under my own power, but I have to own one. It's so me. And on that note, guys, I think we are gonna wrap this thing up. We're gonna get it out on the road, and I'm gonna give you my final thoughts, as if it isn't obvious already.
Guys, this is the saddest part of this whole video. My time with the MT01 is sadly coming to a close. I have to go give it back to the owner. I want to take it home. I really do, honestly. It might sound, because I've been slightly more animated than I usually am, that I'm just being silly or I'm acting it up, but this is genuinely a motorcycle that I never thought I'd get to ride. Never in a million years. I've been looking at photos of it forever. It's one of the most unique bikes that I've ever seen. And it's such a weird bike. It's so weird. And I love it. Oh, I love it as much, if not more, than I thought I would. It is 100% my kind of motorcycle. And as a result, this thing is not for everybody. It really isn't. And you know what? I understand why it didn't do very well. I understand why Yamaha had a hard time selling it. It's not the bike somebody would get when they want to get a hyper naked, when they want to get something big and fast. This is just not that motorcycle. But I'm over my big and fast phase. I don't need a big, stupid, really quick, high horsepower bike. I don't really want one. But I guarantee you I would have as much, if not more fun on the MT01 than any other hyper naked motorcycle I would have purchased. But that's me. Let's have some objective final thoughts on this. The handling on this bike is hard. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm not 100% sure whether it's the tires or what with this motorcycle, but it's definitely, even on the best day, this motorcycle is not going to be nimble. It's faster than you'd think side to side, but it's still slow. And while the brakes are pretty good, considering how much bike they're stopping, the stock rubber lines need to go. I've definitely felt them get a little funny on me. They need to be replaced with something that's more appropriate for this giant motorcycle. This really is the ultimate one-trick pony. Its big wow factor is a big, stupid engine in a frame that handles pretty good. And that appeal is going to run out for a lot of people. But I'm a big, stupid dumbass, and I like my bike simple, and this is about as good as it gets for me. This is just the pure joy of motorcycling that I look for when I want to buy a bike. It's why I own my Grezzo, because it's just a joyful motorcycle for me to get on. Something about the sound, the feeling of this bike, it's more than the sum of its parts. Whether I buy this one, which I don't know that I can make happen, or whether I import one of these, which would be difficult and require a lot of work, I'm gonna own one of these one day. It's not gonna be tomorrow, it's not gonna be the next day, but who knows, maybe 2024 will be the year of the MT01 in Spite's garage. For sure the KLR needs to go bye-bye, because this thing is about as big as in KLR. This has been the best day on a motorcycle I've had in a long time. This is my bike. This is my bike. It's like somebody at Yamaha was looking into the future, into their Palantir, and they saw some dummy in Texas, and they were like, I'm gonna build this guy's bike. And this is what they came up with. And I cannot tell you how much it is just ticking every single box for me. But it won't do it for everybody. So you're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. And with that, guys, I'm gonna sign off because I could just wax poetic about this bike all day long. So if you enjoyed this video, click the links down in the description below, check out the Patreon, support what I'm doing here, or if I have tickled your fancy, click that link down in the pinned comment and come buy this motorcycle because it's for sale. You can buy literally this motorcycle from the guy out here in the hills who owns it, and then you can own it, and then you can have me slide into your DMs being like, hey, you selling the MT01? You gonna sell the MT01? I'll come get it from you. I'll come buy it. Let's do a deal. I don't know when, but I'll be in your DMs. I'll hunt you down. I will find you. I'll get you guys in the next one. See you later.